What if the one thing that's holding your business back isn't a lack of motivation? It's your refusal to let go of a plan that no longer fits. Today, we're talking about why pivoting isn't failure. It's often the smartest decision you'll ever make. If you've been feeling restless, drained, or quietly aware that something in your business needs to change, then this episode is your permission slip to pause, listen, and to consider a new direction. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's conversation is for the entrepreneur, founder, coach, consultant, creative, and service provider who has been trying to push through something that no longer feels aligned. Maybe it's the offer you created years ago. Maybe it's the niche that you've outgrown. Maybe it's a way of working that used to make sense, but now it's costing you your energy, your creativity, and your peace. So here's the truth. Changing your mind does not mean you were wrong. It simply means that you have more information now. You have grown. Your clients have changed. Your life has changed. Your capacity has changed. And sometimes the most responsible thing you can do for your business is to stop forcing an old plan to carry a new version of you. So let's start with guilt. So many business owners feel like pivoting is the same thing as quitting, and that's the furthest from the truth. We tell ourselves, today I've already announced this. I've already invested in this. People know me for this. What will they think if I changed? But guilt is not always a sign that you did something wrong. Sometimes guilt shows up because you're stepping out of an old agreement you made with yourself. You have you've built this business around a goal, a promise, a vision that once felt right. But the thing is that vision no longer fits, and it can feel like you're betraying yourself because you worked so hard to build it. But what if that pivot isn't betrayal? What if it's stewardship? And I know I've talked about that before. What if you're taking better care of your business, the mission, the clients, and the person you're becoming? One reason pivoting feels so emotional is because our goals become part of our identity. We don't say, I offer this service. We start with, this is who I am. We become the person we're known for in a certain offer, a certain audience, a certain message, and a certain way of thinking. That can be powerful. It helps people understand what we do, but it can also be a cage. When our identity is so tightly wrapped up in an old goal, we may ignore the signs to evolve. You may start saying yes to work that drains you. You may keep marketing something that you no longer believe in. You may keep serving a client base that no longer matches your values, your skills, and or that season of your life. And this is where you have to remember your business is allowed to grow because you are allowed to grow. And I repeat that you are allowed to grow. You are not required to stay in a committed version of success that no longer fits your life. So, how do you know when it's time to pivot? Let's look at a few signs. First, if you're constantly avoiding the work, Sharon, I know that's you. It's not because you're lazy. It's not that you lack discipline, but it's because something about the work no longer connects. You keep procrastinating, delaying, and finding reasons not to show up for it. Sometimes avoidance is not a character flaw. Sometimes that's information. Second, your offers drain you. You can deliver it, but it takes too much out of you. You finish the work and still feel depleted instead of being purposeful. That may be a sign that the offer needs to be refined, repriced, retired, or redesigned. Third, your clients have changed. The people that you once served may need something different now. Their budgets, their expectations, problems, and priorities may have shifted. Everybody in this economy, everything's have shifted. So your offer is built for who they used to be. And it may be time to update how you serve them. And fourth, your life has changed. Maybe your capacity looks different. Maybe your family, your health, responsibilities, and personal goals have shifted, and that's to be expected. A business model that worked in one season of your life can be unsustainable in another. And fifth, you are only doing it because you've already invested in it. And that's a lot to think about. If you're doing it out of obligation, that sits heavily on your heart. You spent the money, the time, the energy, and public commitment, so you feel like you have to keep going. But if you keep going, it's going to keep costing you more. And that's not a strategy to have. Staying committed to something that no longer works does not honor the investment. It only increases the cost. So, a healthy pivot doesn't always mean burning everything down and starting over. Sometimes it's much more practical than that. It might look like you raising your prices so your business can support your real capacity. It might look like narrowing your niche so your message becomes clearer and your work becomes more effective. It might look like removing services that no longer align with your strengths and consistently increase, or I should say, consistently create stress behind the scenes. And nobody wants stress. I sure don't. It might look like changing your messaging because the language you used in the beginning no longer reflects the depth of the people or the person you are now. It could mean switching business models, moving from one to one work to groups, from custom service to packaging offers, from constant availability to clearer boundaries. It can even look like working fewer hours. That is a pivot too. Sometimes the shift isn't about doing more. Sometimes it's about building a business that can actually hold the life that you say you want. So let's be clear. Not every hard minute, or I should say moment, means it's time to pivot. Sometimes the work is simply challenging. Sometimes you're in a messy middle. Sometimes the fear gets loud right before the breakthrough. That is why intentional pivoting requires an honest question. Ask yourself, is this fear or is this growth? Am I trying to escape discomfort or am I responding to wisdom? Am I avoiding the next level of responsibility or am I recognizing that the current path is no longer aligned? There is a big difference between quitting because you're scared and pivoting because you are clear. One is reactive, the other is responsible. One is impulsive, the other is strategic. So you got to figure out which one is which and move accordingly. So before you make a major change, gather information. Look at your numbers. Pay attention to what your clients are asking for. Take a closer look at what gives you energy and what drains it. Talk to trusted advisors. Give yourself room to tell the truth without rushing to blow everything up overnight. Here's one of the things I enjoy about this whole intentional rest and reset series because I love sharing information with people. That's one of the things I do in the position I'm in, and on my other platforms, I talk about this series. So one of the responses I got back was one of my sister friends on LinkedIn, and she responded, "Jamila, this is so on point where I am in my business, seeing a new direction to make a greater impact in the lives of those who I work with. I've been praying for motivation to be more consistent and doing something daily to be better and to gain more. I'm a work in progress and I'm ready for this transition. Thanks, sis." So that quote captures exactly what so many business owners feel. Sometimes we think we need more motivation when we really just need permission to transition. We keep asking ourselves to be more consistent with something that no longer fits. And when the deeper invitation is maybe to create new structure, a new offer, a new direction that allows us to make a greater impact. So, this is what I want us to do. And trust me, I'm right along with you. This is our challenge. As you know, we don't leave out of here without one. This week, write down one thing that you've been afraid to let go of in your business. Just one thing. And then ask yourself, am I holding on to this because is it still serving me or is it because I'm afraid of what people will think if I change? And like really sit with it and be honest with yourself. I had to do this because there were certain services I ended up letting go. And one of the services I used to provide was website auditing. And I like that because it would allow me to give advice to people about their websites, what can be updated and whatnot. And I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. But after a while, I found that it was way too much effort because the person either took the information and either did nothing with it. And what I mean did nothing with it, they didn't want to get a new website or didn't want to take the suggestions I provided, or they went to another service provider, which is fine. But I just thought of myself, I said, this particular service is honestly draining me because there's a lot of research to go along with it. So I had to let it go. And I think you should be able to do the same thing. Look at one service that you had and then think, is this really something I should hold on to or should I let it go? But here's the thing, you have to be honest with yourself about it. And if it's no longer if it's no longer working for you, it's time to let it go. And it's okay to say, I've outgrown certain things, and give yourself the permission to explore a wiser path. So sometimes the next level of your business begins with giving yourself permission to pivot. So with that being said, I want to thank you for listening to this episode. And as always, if this episode spoke to you where you are right now, share it with another business owner who may need that reminder that it's okay to pivot. And until next time, remember, a pivot is not your proof that you failed. It may be proof that you are finally listening to what's going on in your business. So with that being said, I want you to be inspired, be inspiring, be encouraged, be encouraging. But most of all, I want you to be you, and you have permission to pivot. And I'll check you out next week. Take care.